When Emily and her husband, Nathan, moved into the old Victorian house on Maplewood Lane, the realtor had smiled a little too brightly when handing them the keys. The house was beautiful, arched ceilings, stained glass windows, and the faint scent of cedar still clinging to the wooden beams. It was perfect for their first Halloween together. Emily adored the holiday. She filled the porch with pumpkins, ghost-shaped fairy lights, and cobwebs that shimmered under the orange glow. Everything was picture perfect, until she went down to the basement. The basement door was tucked behind the kitchen, painted the same shade of cream as the walls. It blended in, almost intentionally. When Emily first opened it, a gust of air met her, damp and earthy, like wet stone. The stairs creaked beneath her weight as she descended with a flashlight, since the single hanging bulb didn't seem to work. The moment her foot hit the concrete floor, the air grew heavier, thicker, as if she had entered an entirely different world. Rows of rusted pipes lined the ceiling, dripping occasionally into a small puddle near the wall. Boxes of forgotten belongings sat stacked in the corners, old books, cracked picture frames, a broken doll. But what made Emily freeze wasn't any of that. It was the faint sound. A whisper. She thought it was the wind at first, but there were words, soft, rhythmic, almost like chanting. She lifted her flashlight, pointing it toward the pipes, and the sound stopped. Her heart thudded. Then, suddenly, one of the pipes rattled violently, echoing through the entire basement. Emily screamed and stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. It rolled under a shelf, leaving her in near darkness. She raced up the stairs and slammed the door shut. When Nathan came home, she told him what happened, but he laughed it off. "Old houses make noise," he said, kissing her forehead. "Probably air trapped in the plumbing." That night, as they sat in bed, the whispering returned, but louder. This time, it wasn't coming from below. It was in the walls. Nathan went down the next morning to check the pipes. He was gone for almost half an hour before Emily heard him yell. She rushed down and found him staring at the far wall, pale as a ghost. Someone had scratched words into the concrete, "Don't let him out." They tried to scrub it off, but no matter how hard they cleaned, the letters remained faintly visible. The following days grew stranger. Emily began to hear breathing when she passed the basement door. Their dog refused to go near it. One morning, she found muddy footprints leading from the basement to the kitchen, bare feet, too small to be Nathan's. On Halloween night, Emily woke to the sound of running water. She sat up and realized it was coming from below. The basement light was on. Nathan wasn't in bed. She ran downstairs, heart pounding. The basement was flooded, ankle deep in cold water. In the small town of Hollow Ridge, there stood a house that no one dared to enter, the Wendell House. It had been abandoned for 50 years, its yard strangled by thorny vines, and its windows hidden beneath layers of grime. The locals whispered that every Halloween night, orange light flickered from its basement windows, like a fire burning underground. No one had ever gone close enough to check. That changed when Tara, Eli, and Jordan, 3 thrill-seeking college friends, decided to spend Halloween exploring it for their Urban Legends Exposed channel. "This'll go viral," Jordan said, shouldering his camera. 1 million views minimum, if we get footage of that basement pumpkin ghost. The front door moaned open like it was breathing. Dust fell from the ceiling with every step they took inside. The house smelled like rot and something sweetly decayed, like pumpkins left too long in the sun. "Creepy, but kind of cool," Eli muttered, sweeping his flashlight over peeling wallpaper. On the wall near the staircase, they found a painting of a smiling man holding a carved pumpkin. His grin was too wide, his eyes hollow black pits. At the bottom was a nameplate, "The Pumpkin Man, 1894. Tara shivered. "I hate that thing." They filmed every room until Jordan stumbled on a trapdoor beneath a pile of broken boards in the living room. "Basement time," he whispered dramatically. The air below was damp and cold. Their flashlights shook slightly as they descended. The smell hit first, rotting vegetables and burnt wax. When they reached the floor, the beams revealed dozens of pumpkins, carved with grotesque faces. Their candles had long melted, leaving black streaks that looked like tears running down their eyes. At the far end of the basement stood a rusted metal door. On it was scratched a message, barely legible through the rust: "Don't feed him after midnight." Tara's voice quivered. "Feed who?" Before anyone could answer, Eli pushed the door open. Inside was a small stone room, circular, with a single chair bolted to the floor. A large pumpkin sat on it, carved into a grinning face, its jagged smile lit by a flickering candle. Around the chair were dozens of melted candles and what looked like dried stems, tied together into little human shapes. Jordan raised the camera. "It's probably an art piece or ritual prank." But then, the pumpkin's grin twitched. The candle inside flared blue, and the walls began to pulse, softly at first, then violently, like they were breathing. Eli dropped his flashlight. "Did you see that?" The flame inside the pumpkin grew taller, and from its carved mouth came a low, bubbling laugh. Then it spoke, its voice dry as dust scraping across stone. "You shouldn't have opened the door." The room went dark. Jordan screamed. The sound of something wet dragged across the floor. Tara's light flickered back to life, just long enough to see a shadow with a pumpkin head rising behind Eli. Its grin stretched wider than any human's. Its fingers, black and root-like, wrapped around Eli's shoulders. He was gone in seconds, pulled into the dark, leaving only his camera clattering on the floor. Tara and Jordan ran, slamming the door behind them. They scrambled up the stairs as laughter echoed behind them, a hollow, gurgling sound that followed like a song. When they burst outside, the air smelled of smoke. They turned to look back and froze. Every window in the house now glowed orange, and through the glass, hundreds of carved pumpkin faces stared back. That night, the video uploaded itself to their YouTube channel even though they'd destroyed the camera. The thumbnail showed 3 pumpkins sitting in a circle, each carved with their faces. The caption read, "Feed him every Halloween." No one ever saw Tara, Jordan, or Eli again. But each Halloween, if you walk by Wendell House, you can see 3 new pumpkins in the basement window, still flickering, still smiling. Every Halloween, Oliver Crane and his father, Henry, turned their suburban home into a wonderland of glowing pumpkins. The Cranes were known as the Pumpkin Family on their street. Every year, they carved a dozen new jack-o'-lanterns and lined the porch with their orange army. But that year was different. Henry had found a strange pumpkin at the farmer's market, large, almost black, with deep ridges and an oddly warm surface. The old farmer who sold it warned him, "Don't carve it after midnight. It remembers what it was." Henry laughed it off and brought it home. Oliver named it Grinny. He loved how its crooked stem looked like a tail. But when he touched it, it felt more like skin than rind. That night, as they arranged the pumpkins, Oliver noticed something odd. When he turned toward the basement window, he saw another pumpkin inside, lit, flickering. "Dad," he asked, "did you put one down there?" Henry shook his head. "No, buddy. We didn't carve one for the basement." When Oliver looked again, the pumpkin had moved closer to the glass. He shrugged it off, thinking it was his imagination. But later, when he went downstairs for candy, he saw the same pumpkin sitting by the window, only now, its grin was different. Its eyes were carved wider, and its mouth stretched into a sharp smile that hadn't been there before. That night, Oliver woke to a sound coming from the basement. A dull, rhythmic thump. He slipped from bed, crept to the basement door, and pressed his ear against it. He heard a whisper, low and almost playful, "Come light my candle, Oliver." He froze. His father was asleep. No one else was home. Still, he opened the door. The air was freezing. The pumpkin's faint orange glow shimmered at the far end of the basement. The candle inside flickered as though it were breathing. He stepped closer, and saw that the pumpkin was growing. Its vines spread across the floor, curling like fingers. Its smile widened as Oliver approached. Suddenly, the candle went out. The basement plunged into blackness. Then, tap, tap, tap. The sound came from the basement window. Oliver turned his flashlight toward it, and gasped. A child's face stared back from outside. Muddy, pale, and smiling. "Let me in," the child whispered. "He wants to meet you." Oliver stumbled back. The vines moved faster now, slithering toward him, whispering in dry voices that sounded like wind through hollow stems. One wrapped around his ankle. He screamed. The light went out again. When his father burst into the basement moments later, it was empty. The only thing left was the black pumpkin sitting in the center of the room. It had a new face now, Oliver's. The next morning, the neighbors noticed that the Cranes' porch looked brighter than ever. Dozens of pumpkins lined the steps, all perfectly carved. But one stood out, large, dark, and strangely lifelike. Its eyes seemed to follow you. Every Halloween after that, the Cranes' pumpkins multiplied. No one saw Henry again. But if you walk past their house at midnight, you'll hear a small voice whisper from the basement window, "Come light my candle," and if you look too long, one of the pumpkins will blink.